Welcome to the third session of Design United's conference, Small Measures, Great Impact. The speakers for this session are German architect Jan Glasmier, designer Ayaka Yamashita, and emerging multidisciplinary designer from Nepal Dhiraj Manandhar of studio Manansala. This session is being compared by Kabindu Desaran and moderated by architects Ayush Gangwal and Vrinda Kanvinde.
Hello everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time and thank you to Design United team for inviting me. I am Dhiraj Manandhar and I'm a designer from Bhaktapur, Nepal. I'm about to graduate from Kathmandu University Department for Art and Design. So all the projects are done to be graduated, but we're still waiting for the completion of our exhibition. So this talk includes my final integrated project. Not all of it, but to cover my thought process and some of my design beliefs that I've learned for the past few years. So here is something about where I'm from. This is a portion of the district of Bhaktapur. It's the smallest district in Nepal. But in this smaller city, there are a lot of stories, culturally, historically, and which is fascinating. So one of those stories would be that in 1975, which was 45 years ago, when I was even born, a group of German architects came to Bhaktapur for Bhaktapur development project. They were here to build brick roads, renovate the temple architectures. They were better known personals like Niels Kutshaw, he was a German architect, and Gotz Hagmüller, he's Austrian, who were the lead architectures. And they came for the product, they came for the project, and still they haven't left the city because they said that they simply fell in love with it. And there are other lesser known characters to the public like Margaret Stutzbaker, who was the wife of an architect who also came for a Bhaktapur development project. So Margaret started the making of Durga marionette puppet in Nepal from Bhaktapur to create jobs and empower women. She got inspiration from the city's Durga deities and brought the local artisans and craftsmen from mask maker, textile workers, wood carvers. And she wasn't just creating or designing a product, but she was designing the economy of the city. Today, these puppets are very popular souvenirs from the city. I actually wrote my paper on this, so these are unpublished information that I got from personal interviews, recalling memories of 45 years. I'm trying to create a book and an exhibition to make this information more public. So it turns out a lot of people have come to this ground and renovating architecture, creating products, right? Falling in love with the city. And here I was trying to run away from it, creating Swiss style posters, admiring Italian and German designers. And I realized that I was good at creating cold and clinical designs with inspiration from outside, but would lost my own sense of belonging when the project was done. The project would look like as if it could have been done by any other designer with similar skills. So from that point, I wanted to create works that resemble me and my being. Firstly, I began with the tracking of my physical sense of being. So during the Bhaktapur development project, they documented pictures of the city square and tracking down the familiar architecture. I found my old home. So this was it. The shape in front of that red circle is where I belong. And another thing is that I come from a family whose traditional roots are in farming. My grandfather was a farmer. After him, we discontinued this path, but we do let other farm on our land and receive a portion during the harvest instead. And I started to go to this harvesting season, and what I observed was that this idea of sustainable design and farming merging to create life and craft. So we get these grains of paddy, right, from the field. We take them to the mill, it remove its outer shell, and we get rice for the whole year. A beautiful idea of living off the land. And there's more to it than just food. There are also ritualistic and crafts involved in the process. We make these paddy dolls from the first yields as an offering to the deities for a good harvest. And also we make these, with the remaining straws from the paddy, we make these beautifully woven mats called sukul. And these husks that comes from after these paddy go to the mill, they are using the insulation like I used this for the insulation for my final integrated project in the yogurt making, or even convert it into the compost to give new life to the rice plants. So this is just my story. And in Bhaktapur, there are a lot of other stories like who have their own generational skills in craftsmanship, in particular material, technique, or craft style. And this play of craft, material, and design is where I place myself as a designer, being able to bring them together and producing products that has cultural roots and a sense of belonging to this city, yet being able to fit this time of modernity. Uh, so as an example of metalwork would be these pieces. They are called bajang. They are the portion of water pipes that hold the water and opening up for the smoke. So this is where you put the smoke in, and this is the smoke out, and you put water over here. And this pieces has been in my family for over a century, and design wise it's perfect example of form and function. So when you're in your home, you use the elaborately decorated one, this one, and when you're on the move, you will use the smaller one, which is more handy. The metalwork was spot on beautiful, and I thought I would start from this craft skill. So the hexad lamp was a way to merge these metalworks and a beautiful Buddhist philosophy. So it's based on the idea of mandal. You guys may know it as mandala, but here we call it mandal. So it takes hours of our life creating these mandals, and you use powder. You make these astamangals. You make deities, do the rituals, and at the end you just erase it. It's called manda visarjan to end it. I mean, you could just let it be and let the wind do its job, right? Creating a mess, but it is about how you should be responsible to your creation. And I believe it's such a beautiful idea of letting things go, that what created will eventually come to its end. So this project was to use this material belief using copper and bamboo, which would age gracefully. Shape is inspired from the mandal itself. Being able to be made in the city, empowering the local artisans and craftsmen, using the beaten copper texture that the craftsmen use for copperwares so that it captures the light in the crater. These and the lines would actually reflect back into the space itself. So making the space that illuminates a more serene space that invokes this sense of letting things go, could be emotional burden or could be anger. Also design wise, it's a modular system that can be easily packaged with lesser footprint. So in this project, I was trying to create more of a want for the people with this craft, but there was a dire need to maintain a sustenance of the city because of the introduction of these foreign materials. So before when there was feast, we would feast in these leaf plates made from leaves. But now we use paper coated with shiny plastic, this one. So you are keeping the culture intact without actually keeping the culture intact. And which was a base for me to start my final integrated project to prove that these skills and materials merged with design is the future. So I started with this. This is a locally produced yogurt. The city is very famous for it. And in this past 4 to 5 years, I have personally experienced a rapid change on how we celebrate this yogurt consuming culture in Bhaktapur. It used to be transported and stacked like this, and which today it looks like this. And this is what the making process looked like previously, and this is what it looks like today. And trying to know why people chose them was very important, because if you don't understand people, I don't think you can design for them. So there were these usuals like stackability. You have sense of security, and it's easy for transporting, which every food product should have. So is that the only reason to this original clay pots then? So that was the question for me. From a designer's eyes, these pots are perfect to transport in these raw packages called shiga. They would be carried around the city with wooden triangular skewers to hold one above the other. But today, the way to transport has changed. People use vehicles, and they are stacked like this, but transported without the covers. And how many people would actually trust this and move to plastic would be very justifiable. So no wonder people switch from these traditional pots to these newer ones, plastic ones, but it wasn't just a design change, but it was the change in the whole material. So first of all, these people lose their jobs, right? They're the pottery makers from the city. And what about the single-use plastic culture that the city is beginning to experience? So there were a lot of solutions to this problem. Maybe I could have made a campaign on why we should use clay pots than plastic containers. Maybe there could have been an emotional video of a pottery maker losing their job, or I could have just designed an edible packaging instead. But as a designer, we need to know that we have a responsibility. Like what we create has a power to disrupt and uproot the whole system. It's how we replace a product, removing the problem from it without affecting the city's sustenance. So for this product, I chose to approach of bringing these people and process together, rethinking the whole packaging from material to promoting upcycling to decrease wastage. So this is the solution that I came up with. You look at it and say it's just a simple vessel, and that's the whole idea. People were giving me the feedback that it was so simple. How can you spend months in this, creating simple things? Creating simple things, you distill the abstract idea to the level where it is so simple that people would understand it easily. And simplicity is the complex thing to create, as they say. I tried 150 milliliter version, the smaller one, because it saved a lot of resources. And if it works, it can always be scaled back, which I did. Later in the process, I created 1 liter and 2 liter variations of this. So the shape is inspired from this piece. It's called Chakanchi Twacha or Chauthai. It's a tool. It's a tool to measure volume in Nepal. It was a tool to measure volume in Nepal. So it's made from metal. When I went to yogurt maker and asked him how much do you put, like how much ml do you put for one portion, they would say chakanchi, and I didn't know what it was. So luckily, I found this piece at my home and I measured it, and it turns out to be 142 ml. So this shows how close these pieces are to the city. Like there are no milliliter or liter. It's just one simple word. And this container, I chose this container because it has smaller opening at the top. So there is lesser surface area, which reduces the spillage in transportation, allows to stack one pot above the other. And the volume of the majority of the volume stays at the bottom, giving it more stability. And it also has, as it has smaller opening, there's a less chance of bacterial contamination, and it increases the shelf life, which is also reinforced by the additional wooden cover. The form and inspiration is there, but it is also must to begin from its element, the material that people are close to, and why and how they have been using this clay and terracotta for this product, because it is porous and absorbs excess water in the making process, and how people behave to this material, how design dissolves in these people's behavior, and how people got this idea of upcycling them, giving them a new life. So after all this consideration, there's this part in design process, we call it design thinking, where we sketch, we prototype, we do usability test, and we make models. But this is a religion of the designer, to be honest, to make ergonomically perfect objects, make beautiful stories, like create fun and functional products, and also choosing the best option rather than the safer one. Uh, then I moved to, there's more to it. It's about making a story on how people would connect to it, if it prompts the idea of sharing to be fun, and how people use them. Because I can go hours and hours saying what it is, but how I designed it and all, but it's not about me. After I put out for the people, it's about how they use it and what they say. It has to be a dialogue. And for a story, you connect the users or the customers with the makers, because people don't fall in love with faceless brands, they fall in love with personalities. And in communication of this product, it's about celebrating this process of making and people involved in it. It has to respect the process of the original product did, celebrating these makers, the process from creation, transportation to consumption, and fixing these issues where even the clay pots are carried in plastic bags, to something more playful, connect to its history, making secondary transfer more fun. It's a beautiful idea of using package according to the product, using few strings could easily hold 2 to 4 pots in one go, and creating a holistic experience from the time people come to the contact with the product to the stores. It's a brand identity, every brand touch points, because it's about designing an experience, connecting these tribes of consumers and placing the product where it belongs. And sometimes we're so deep in the process that we can't see the flaws. So we need to stand back a bit and question if this small part of brand presence actually connects to its vision. Is the electrical poles and wire doing justice to it? And why do we have to stick to this conventional method of signage system? Why can't we use those sukkos with cross-setting on its surface? The material and the skills are from the city itself. Has the brand essence integrated into it? And yes, it's not gonna be in good details. They are made from hands. There are gonna be few imperfections, but we shouldn't confuse communication with legibility. It will perish within few years. It will be turned to compost, but we can continue this cycle of making them every few years, creating a sustaining system to the makers, to the environment, because there's a big difference between permanent and timeless design. Nothing is permanent. Maybe some design could go for 50 to 100 years, like maybe that is called, maybe that is timeless, but it will eventually come to its end, and maybe it will take a month, a few years, and we need to take care of that to create sustainable design and choose correct materials so that it would age gracefully without affecting the environment it is placed on. So yeah, this is my story, and with all these things that I've learned and I'm practicing, I think I'm just starting this part of rejuvenation and creation for the future of craft from the city, from this small red dot where I have found my sense of belonging. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Ah